Hey, yo, bro, what are you doing? Oh, shit, there's a wasp! Oh my God, go! Oh, I got it, never mind. Wait, let me hit it one more time. Alright. When debating the best science fiction movie ever made, people often bring up two of the most prolific and impactful films the genre has to offer: Ridley Scott's 1979 deep space claustrophobic classic Alien, and John Carpenter's thrilling 1982 Antarctic escapade The Thing. Now, it seems that although most people believe both of these films stand at the apex of sci-fi's potential for horror and mystery, there is also a great divide between the proponents of either film. While some people adamantly argue in favor of Alien being the better movie, others argue that The Thing is in fact the more well-crafted motion picture. So today, although I'm sure I won't put a permanent end to the debate, I'm going to give my take on these two iconic films and hopefully provide some interesting insight into each film's case for being the better of the two. Here we go.
The yes is just the crest, expressing myself the best. The recipe for death is testing me. I'm the next to be, pressing heavy heat up on your chest until you rest in peace. Let the lesson be, don't mess with me unless you want your dome piece blown into the Chesapeake.
Showcasing the talents of two of the most influential directors of all time in Ridley Scott and John Carpenter, Alien and The Thing follow stories with similar premises, but separate themselves from one another in the details that underlie them. While both films shape their unsettling environments through the characters and their interactions with a newly discovered malevolent alien organism, they incorporate each creature's abilities and ways of operating to continue the story through two totally unique methods and create two fully different yet still frightening tones. To further contextualize the arguments for and against either film, and refresh your memory a bit if you haven't seen them in a while, Alien chronicles the story of a mining crew aboard the commercial starship the Nostromo, and the chaotic events following the crew's alarming discovery that a monster has suddenly burst forth from one of their crewmates' chests after an unexpected exploration mission to a moon called LV-426. In the aftermath, they must summon the intelligence and strength to outsmart or outlast this terrifyingly daunting creature. Does that sound about right, John? Okay. The Thing, though, follows a group of scientists researching in Antarctica who discover a violent, shape-shifting alien and their desperate attempts to survive as they frantically try to prevent it from overtaking the planet. The crew steadily descends into disarray as they begin turning on one another, chaotically trying to determine who's really human and who's really just a thing. While rewatching these films in preparation for this video, I immediately noticed a striking similarity that many may have initially overlooked. Both of these movies' primary conflicts feature the relationship between a stealthy alien patiently stalking its soon-to-be victims and the characters' increasingly radical actions to survive. However, Alien and The Thing expand upon this relationship quite differently, adding an interesting layer of separation between the two. Alien focuses far more heavily on creating a sense of dread and danger against an obvious threat, clearly identifying the heroes and villains of the story, making for a far more straightforward narrative. Much of its greatness stems from its ability to establish realistic characters as they begin having various life-threatening revelations, such as the stunning realization that Ash is actually an android, or that a facehugger has attached itself to a member of their crew, and their understandably distressing attempts to escape one of the most vicious and frightening creatures in science fiction. Director Ridley Scott expertly builds tension throughout the film after having developed each crew member and their relationships with one another, and after having slowly established the film's setting with a collection of scenes designed to showcase the transition from a safe and amicable environment into the unsettling claustrophobic atmosphere filled with complex backstories and devastating realizations in which the film eventually finds itself. In contrast, while The Thing also focuses fairly heavily on building a sense of dread and danger by juxtaposing the heroes against the mysterious alien, it mostly emphasizes the distrust the human characters have amongst themselves. Since The Thing can perfectly imitate any creature it assimilates, the humans have no easily performable method of identifying who is truly human, especially since The Thing also displays a level of intelligence on par with, and sometimes even greater than, most of the humans. Although Mac eventually develops the brilliant blood test, it's shown to be far too slow and cumbersome to yield any definitive answers quickly, so when the characters encounter other crew members, they have virtually no way of determining their true intentions before it's too late. After having developed the crew members' relationships with one another similarly to Alien's introductory scenes, director John Carpenter continues the story and uses these characters' preceding actions in response to their discovery of the shape-shifting thing to create a growing sense of distrust throughout the film. Understanding the complex dynamics the characters have with one another as well as their respective roles within the group not only creates more well-received and fleshed out characters, but also enables the audience to make predictions about what will happen next, placing us into the characters' shoes as we anxiously anticipate the outcome of every scene, something The Thing does especially well. The primary difference between Carpenter's and Ridley's uses of their respective monsters is that Alien pits the main characters against a clear and consistent antagonist, the Xenomorph, and builds tension by keeping its location a mystery to the characters and the audience, making us unsure of which characters, if any, will survive. The Thing, though, emphasizes the effect an unidentifiable threat can have on a group of people as fear and anxiety slowly overwhelm them. The monster has a far more personal and interwoven relationship with the surrounding characters than the Xenomorph, forcing the characters to make more complex decisions to survive as they try to uncover the mystery of who's who. What do you think about that, Gary?
This is pure nonsense. Doesn't prove a thing.
Well, I'm sorry you feel that way. Depending on your personal preference, you may enjoy the tense, claustrophobic, and uneasy feelings you experience during the cruise, especially Ripley's attempts to escape the Xenomorph's presence in Alien. On the other hand, you may prefer the Thing's constant sense of mystery and uncertainty, the persistent unsettling feeling from not knowing whether those around you are truly human, or just another one of those things.
The first thing that I'm gonna do when I get back is to get some decent food. I can dig it, man.
In addition to their interesting story-altering monsters, both of these films are also typically lauded for their slow build-up to an exciting, high-paced finale, detailing the complex inner workings of their characters' relationships, motives, and connections to the antagonist and the environment. Before even unveiling Alien's primary antagonist, Ridley Scott progresses the film as he develops his protagonist's personalities and relationships with one another, and as he reveals the conflicts these characters will soon face. He also allows his characters to push the narrative themselves, such as Kane's explorative personality leading him into the danger that directly or indirectly affects everything throughout the rest of the movie. At the same time, Scott also establishes the environment in which the rest of the film will play out, making the Xenomorph's eventual appearance both constantly approaching, yet also almost entirely unexpected. As the crew embarks on their journey back to Earth, we get a detailed look at how the ship's dynamics work. Due to the film's small cast and through carefully written dialogue and direction, we get a fairly detailed inspection at every character, so no one feels redundant or unimportant. Everyone has a uniquely defined personality and role to play in the narrative and relates them to the other characters. For example, early in the film, we learn that Parker and Brett's primary motivation is money, as they persistently bring it up in conversation with little provocation, even though the rest of the crew seems annoyed by this. We hear the two of them constantly talk about their shares, so when Ash informs them about the requirements for their pay, they willingly choose to go to LV-426 even though they don't want to, because the film had established their desire for money, believably continuing the story without forcing the characters to take uncharacteristic actions. But what's your opinion on this whole situation, Dallas?
Well, you get what you contracted for like everybody else.
In slowly building to the film's more exciting moments, we also take note of Ripley's stern, assertive personality as the second-in-command, juxtaposed to Dallas's more laid-back and submissive operation as the captain, a relationship that sets the stage for some of the pivotal decisions and confrontations that follow, such as Ripley corralling the remaining crew members and taking control of the situation after Dallas's disappearance and Parker's emotional and impulsive reaction to the scene. Interestingly, although it may only be obvious after the first viewing, Ash appears far more detached from the crew than everyone else, and upon further inspection, we clearly see Ash display odd behaviors and a strong desire to feed his curiosity, even at the risk of other crew members' lives, which eventually builds to one of the most stunning scenes in the film, the dramatic and violent revelation that Ash is actually an android. That has to be upsetting, right?
Shut up!
Okay, sorry, damn. The Thing builds to its stunning reveals a bit differently. While it also takes time to firmly establish many of its characters' personalities and roles within the group and the narrative as a whole, it infuses much more mystery into its story. Fully maximizing the effects of the Thing's abilities, John Carpenter introduces the characters alongside the shape-shifting creature, so the audience learns about these characters while also learning about the Thing. Everyone, of course, remembers the iconic blood test, but the incredible collections of scenes leading up to it make it far more impactful than it otherwise would be. As the audience is introduced to each of the crew members, seeing how each person separates himself from the others, the crew eventually encounters a dog that suddenly appears at camp, and we begin unraveling the complicated mystery surrounding this dog alongside the characters. Rather than simply treating it as an unexpected threat, the characters must simply band together to stop, like the Xenomorph and Alien. The Thing requires a bit more thought to understand how to fight it. In Alien, much of the tension builds as a result of the xenomorph's stealth, the inability of the crew to fight it or even find it much of the time. The audience constantly wonders how these characters will either escape the alien or kill it, if they even can. The Thing, though, builds tension from the ambiguity of each character's intentions, the uncertainty of their true nature. The audience is left wondering who to trust more than how these characters can escape. After several surprising scenes, such as the crew's shocking discovery of the Thing in the dog kennel and the Thing's flustered attempt to assimilate Bennings, the characters learn more about how the Thing assimilates other creatures, being able to perfectly and indistinguishably imitate any living being. Throughout these early scenes, Carpenter uses the character's ignorance of the Thing and its abilities in conjunction with various constantly mounting threats to build tension, seen in the crew's increasing distrust towards one another and their growing willingness to kill, as the story approaches some of the most exciting and memorable moments. The Thing and Alien, in addition to their influential monsters and well-paced narratives, also present some of the most interesting collections of characters sci-fi has to offer. Although I must commend the actors in both of these films for their believable and enthralling acting, I think that everyone in these movies plays their parts so well that it's virtually impossible to differentiate them based on skill alone. So instead, I'm going to take a moment to talk about how these films progress the story through the characters differently, while also developing them individually and alongside one another. Starting off with Alien, which may have the better, more developed cast, I noticed that while both of these films feature small ensembles, Alien takes the time to expand upon each character, leaving no crew member feeling forgotten or inconsequential, as I alluded to earlier. Every character, from Parker to Ripley to Dallas to Ash, has distinct qualities that not only separate them from each other, but also individualize them from film's ocean of forgettable characters. Seeing Ash's subtle awkwardness around the rest of the crew coincide with Kane's explorative curiosity and Ripley's unwavering desire to follow protocol, even at the risk of the crew's lives, yields some interesting interactions the film handles extraordinarily well, progressing the story into new and interesting areas the audience eagerly awaits to play out. Although the crew faces persistent danger both externally and internally, their responses to these threats adds layers to the complex relationships between characters the film had developed through violence and fear. Similarly to The Thing, Alien also allows its characters to provide some devastating realizations, primarily through Ash, whom the crew eventually discovers to be an android. Unlike most of the characters in The Thing, Ash's surprise reveal that he was in fact an android and that every crew member was expendable was completely unexpected, with his subtle awkward behavior only noticeable to most people after the first viewing. The Thing creates an atmosphere filled with skepticism and distrust about characters' true motives, so as you watch the film, you're expecting dramatic reveals showing the falsehood of certain characters' actions. In Alien, though, you're completely jolted by Ash's shocking betrayal of the crew because only subtle hints had been foreshadowing it, one of several examples displaying Alien's relationship with character, tension, and story. Throughout The Thing, though, since John Carpenter permeates the atmosphere with ambiguity due to the monster's ability to indistinguishably assimilate the other characters, you're constantly searching for who to trust, magnifying the importance of each crew member, even their subtle actions. Carpenter uses the characters, in conjunction with The Thing and its abilities, to add to the film's constantly distrustful setting. For example, after having established Mac as the main character and the leader of the crew, the film allows its other characters to further add to the growing distrust amongst themselves by accusing Mac of being a thing after finding his clothes torn apart, indicating that he had already been assimilated, and forcing the characters and the audience to question even Mac's true nature. The film similarly uses the characters to build discord amongst themselves several other times. While Alien also forces its characters to confront one another, revealing shocking discoveries either willingly or unwillingly, as seen with Ash and his hidden agendas, The Thing has its character confrontations filled with uncertainty throughout most of the film, since both the audience and the characters understand that everyone may not be as he seems.
If I was an imitation, a perfect imitation, how would you know if it was really me?
Both these films, though, have their characters confront one another to reveal the other's true natures, but The Thing has most of its characters do so intentionally, purposefully searching for any imitation or falsehood in the other characters, while Alien's characters only accidentally discover the truth about Ash, creating a much more surprising moment of betrayal and chaos.
Bring back life form. Priority 1. All other priorities rescinded.
To bring up a final point of comparison, I want to discuss in further detail how Alien and The Thing craft some of the most unforgettable sequences ever put to film. These two movies undoubtedly constitute some of the most memorable scenes in cinematic history. The arrival of the white diaper Peapod people and the fingering of a grown man's face. Now, obviously that was a joke. Clearly a poor one though. Of course, the scenes I'm actually referring to are the chestburster and blood testing scenes. Starting off once again with Alien, we finally witness what much of the first half of the film had been building, culminating in one amazingly unexpected sequence filled with blood, screams, and a noticeably phallic creature violently bursting through a man's chest. Well, if that isn't porn, then I don't know what is. Anyway, the scene lulls you with a false sense of security after having witnessed the mysterious creature attach itself to Kane for hours, building feelings of discomfort and anxiety about whether he'll survive the strange encounter. Although these feelings don't totally evaporate after seeing the creature detach itself without warning or provocation, they do diminish, especially as Kane and the others notice how well he's acting and feeling. So, as the crew comes together to have a moment of relaxation, the scene feels even more jovial and non-threatening. The crew, with the exception of Ash, feels like a family, making jokes and mean-mugging each other.
And I'd rather be eating something else, but right now I'm sticking to food.
You just know what it's made of.
However, the scene's amicable environment abruptly shifts to an unexpectedly awful sight when Kane begins choking on his food. The rest of the crew, believing him to only be asphyxiating, tries to help him, but immediately realize the unsettling truth as he thrashes and violently spurts blood from his chest, only to reveal a small creature just waiting to scream and run. This sudden, whiplash-inducing transition from comfort to chaos not only creates the film's most shocking moment, but also one of the most surprising and horrific scenes in cinematic history. However, The Thing, after having steadily built to the film's marquee moments, finally explodes with energy in a few scenes, but I'll focus on one specifically. All of the uncertainty and questioning about who is still human throughout the film's earlier scenes comes to a head in one moment as the blood test finally reveals the truth about everyone's existence. Mac, after having been accused of being a thing and threatening the rest of the team with dynamite, realizes that, as he puts it,
maybe every part of him was a whole. Every little piece was an individual animal with a built-in desire to protect its own life.
Seeing Norris's imitation split itself to survive inspired Mac to create the blood test, the only way to know whether those around you were truly as they claimed. At this point, everyone, even Mac, could have been assimilated, and nobody, even the audience, knew whether this test would even work. So as Mac explained his reasoning, we started to understand what would happen when the thing's blood faced the heat. The anticipation as to who was still human rapidly mounted as we tried to determine the truth, creating tension by establishing the separation between what we don't know and what we're trying to learn. With each person passing the test, the tension only builds further as we know someone must be hiding in plain sight. We're just anxiously waiting to find out who. So when Mac finally tests Palmer's blood, the previously unreleased energy that had been building from the tension finally explodes as the crew desperately try to kill the newly revealed thing. The ensuing chaos floods the scene with vibrant action, earned from the tension in the previous moments. Unlike Alien, which created its surprising reveal through a false sense of security, The Thing tells you what to expect, but it doesn't tell you who or when to expect it, forcing you to await the inevitable while basking in the tension of the unknown. Alongside Alien's iconic chestburster sequence, The Thing's blood testing scene, although accomplished through vastly different methods, represents science fiction and horror's potential for amazing and exciting moments, built up by the equally important scenes before them. In debating the never-ending question of whether The Thing or Alien is better, a case can certainly be made for either film. On one hand, The Thing offers one of the most interesting and creative concepts cinema has to offer, with the perfect execution and characters to match. So maybe The Thing is better. Shut up! On the other hand though, Alien provides one of the most claustrophobic, heart-pounding experiences ever put to film, expertly paced with an amazing cast and an equally compelling story. So perhaps Alien is better.
Fuck you too!
However, both of these films flawlessly accomplish their seemingly impossible narrative, musical, and visual tasks, with each having some of the best, most influential practical effects in cinema, as well as some of the most memorable scores in horror history, especially The Thing. There are certainly a myriad of other perspectives from which to view these movies, each highlighting another important aspect of film. Ultimately, since both these films so successfully present their stories, perfectly executing almost everything, it's up to you to decide which is truly the best. I'm sure though that you'd like me to give a definitive answer as to which is the better film, but honestly, it boils down to personal preference since each film perfectly accomplishes their narrative goals, as evidenced by the nearly unanimously positive opinion surrounding both of these movies. Honestly, I wouldn't be mad, and I hope you wouldn't be either, if someone believed these films to do everything equally well, or at least provide a total product too close to call. Hell, even Childs, someone known in The Thing for being skeptical, agrees. Right, Childs?
It's a crock of shit.
Oh, well, he's not human anyway, so his opinion doesn't doesn't really matter. I will admit though that The Thing is not only my favorite when compared to Alien for its slightly more irreplaceable experience, but it's also easily my favorite horror movie of all time, and one of my favorite movies in general. While Alien is of course iconic and one of, if not the, most influential horror movies ever made, the tense atmosphere the film creates has never felt as unique and interesting as the untrusting, chaotic environment The Thing initiates. Combine that with its eerie score, complicated character relationships, and a few devastating realizations, and you may have the best science fiction movie of all time.